What if the X-Men accidentally jumped into the Warhammer 40K universe during their dimension hop from Australia in the 90s? A sudden rift tore through the skies above their training grounds, shimmering with unnatural energy. One moment the X-Men were navigating familiar terrain, the next they were hurled into a universe unlike anything they had ever imagined. The horizon was no longer dotted with Australian bushland, but with colossal Gothic spires, burning settlements, and endless battlefields stretching into the distance. Massive warships loomed above, while monstrous armies clashed below. The air itself seemed charged with raw, malevolent power, the very warp seething like a living storm. Here, there were no rules, no familiar enemies, and no guarantee of survival. Every step, every decision could mean the difference between life and death, or corruption by forces beyond comprehension. In this grim, dark reality, the X-Men must navigate a galaxy where gods are real, war is eternal, and humanity itself clings to survival by a thread. Alliances will be forged with alien races, battles will test their powers in unimaginable ways, and the line between heroism and annihilation will blur. For these mutants, the question is no longer just how to survive, but how to protect the innocent, maintain their humanity, and perhaps find a way home.
It began like any other day at the Australian training grounds. A crisp morning with the sun glinting off the jagged cliffs and the winds carrying the scent of eucalyptus across the open fields. The X-Men had been running exercises, perfecting coordination, testing powers, and pushing the boundaries of their abilities. Cyclops barked orders. Wolverine darted through obstacle courses with near-inhuman speed. Storm controlled the air currents to aid in high-altitude drills, and the rest of the team moved with practiced precision, each member a master of their unique abilities. Then, without warning, the sky shimmered unnaturally. A strange distortion tore across the blue canopy above, a jagged crack of iridescent energy that seemed to breathe and pulse as if alive. Time itself appeared to warp around it. Scott's visor flared instinctively, his optic blast instinctively ready. Wolverine's claws slashed at the air as though he could tear the anomaly open. But no strike of steel or energy could affect it. The rift expanded rapidly, stretching across the horizon, and a sudden force tore through the training ground. Trees bent and shattered, rocks levitated for a brief instant before crashing back down. The X-Men felt a tug, a magnetic pull stronger than gravity itself, stronger than any power they had ever felt. The very ground beneath them seemed to vanish as they were hurled forward. When they landed, it was not the familiar scrubland of Australia that met their eyes. The sky was dark, streaked with green and purple auroras, violent and chaotic. Towering Gothic spires pierced the horizon, metal structures fused with stone in impossible geometries. Gigantic warships hung silently in the sky, their engines glowing ominously, casting shadows over the jagged landscape below. Smoke and fire curled into the air, and the distant sound of artillery, massive, almost unearthly, shook the ground beneath them. Nightcrawler was the first to react. "Where are we?" he muttered, his tail curling nervously as he teleported short distances to survey their surroundings. Wolverine growled, scanning the terrain. "This ain't any part of Australia, bub. Not any part I've seen." Storm's eyes glowed faintly as she extended her senses to the turbulent currents of the sky, feeling the unnatural energies of the warp brushing against her mind like icy fingers. Beast approached cautiously, crouching to examine the soil, which was a mixture of scorched earth and metallic residue. "This composition, it isn't natural. There's a resonance here, a presence that is alive in some sense. But it's not organic. It's warped." As the team gathered, a low rumble echoed from the horizon, growing louder. The source soon revealed itself. Monstrous armies, some humanoid but grotesquely mutated, others mechanical and alien, marched across the battlefield. Their armor was scarred, glowing with strange runes. Between them, massive war engines trundled with the weight of a dozen tanks, launching fire and projectiles that left cratered scars on the ground. Cyclops immediately assessed the situation. "Team," he said, his voice steady despite the awe-inspiring terror around them, "we need to regroup and stay calm. Observe, analyze, and be ready. This is unlike anything we've faced." But even as they prepared, a sudden psychic wave slammed through their minds. Jean Grey clutched her head, her eyes glowing red as she attempted to shield your teammates. "It's not just the physical world. There's something here, something inside the air, the ground, even the light itself. It's the warp, chaotic, violent, and alive." The realization hit them hard. This was not merely another battlefield or another threat to Earth. They had been pulled into a universe where war was endless, where gods themselves might walk among mortals, and where humanity clung to survival by a fragile thread. Every instinct honed for strategy and combat had to adapt to the scale of this new grimdark reality. Wolverine stepped forward, claws unsheathed, his usual bravado masking the tension he felt. "Well, bub," he said, scanning the horizon with keen eyes, "looks like we're gonna find out if we're just a bunch of pretty mutants, or if we can survive a galaxy that actually wants us dead." The first moments of survival were chaotic. Trees, rocks, and debris still floated intermittently, warped by lingering energy from the rift. The ground shook beneath their feet as distant explosions painted the horizon with fire and smoke. From the distance, strange armored figures moved with terrifying precision, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Some carried rifles, others swords that shimmered with energy. Yet their movements were coordinated, as if guided by an unyielding will. Nightcrawler tried to teleport closer for reconnaissance, but the air itself resisted him. Warp interference disrupted his teleportation slightly, leaving him slightly off target and brushing against a spire of jagged metal. He tumbled and landed on his feet, tail coiling instinctively. This energy, it's everywhere. I can't predict it," he muttered. Storm extended her arms, attempting to manipulate the winds to clear smoke and debris. She felt the full force of the warp pressing against her, her powers reacting unpredictably, lightning crackling erratically, winds whipping in chaotic and violent patterns. "This universe doesn't obey the laws we know. We're not just visitors. We're intruders in a galaxy ruled by its own rules, its own horrors." Beast muttered to himself, examining the strange metallic structures that seemed to fuse technology with architecture in ways defying physics. The scale, the engineering, it's far beyond anything humanity has achieved. Yet there's a barbaric brutality to it, logic and chaos intertwined. Cyclops gathered the team together, his eyes scanning the horizon, visor glowing faintly. "Listen. We don't know where we are, we don't know the enemies, but one thing's certain. We survive, we stick together, and we adapt. That's what mutants do. Now, let's find some cover and figure out exactly what this place is." As they cautiously moved forward, the ground beneath them cracked, smoke rising from fissures that seemed to pulse with otherworldly energy. Strange shapes moved in the distance, half obscured by haze and chaos. Their journey had begun. They were no longer in Australia, no longer on familiar ground. They had crossed a boundary between worlds and entered a galaxy of eternal war. And in that galaxy, survival was not just about strength, but about cunning, alliances, and understanding forces far beyond anything they had ever faced. The X-Men pressed forward cautiously, every step feeling heavier, as if the air itself resisted their movement. The strange, chaotic atmosphere seemed to weigh on their minds, stirring unease even in the most battle-hardened among them. Cyclops led the way, scanning the horizon, his visor picking up faint movements in the shadows of the distant spires. From the haze, figures emerged, tall, armored, and imposing. Their armor was a mix of metal and intricate designs, strange sigils glowing faintly across their breastplates. At first, the X-Men thought they were facing some alien mercenaries, but the way the figures moved, coordinated and disciplined, hinted at a terrifying intelligence. Wolverine snarled, claws glinting. "I don't like the looks of these sons of whatever they are. They ain't human." Jean Grey's eyes glowed faintly as she reached out with her mind. The psychic presence she felt was immense, far beyond anything they had encountered on Earth. Thoughts and emotions clashed in her consciousness, some coherent, others twisted and alien. "They're aware of us, sensing us, not just physically, but mentally. They can feel our intentions, even our fear." Nightcrawler teleported ahead, moving through the strange, jagged terrain with grace, but the warp interference made each jump uncertain. He stumbled briefly on an alien structure, landing with a grunt. "This place, it resists even me. It's alive somehow, and it doesn't like us." Storm raised her arms instinctively, summoning winds to shield the team from approaching enemies, yet the winds reacted unpredictably, caught in invisible currents that seemed to twist around them. Lightning danced across the horizon, striking distant structures and leaving scorched marks, yet even her powers felt diminished, restrained by the oppressive energy suffusing the world. Beast crouched behind a fractured spire, examining the ground. This isn't just a battlefield. It's a fusion of technology and environment. The structures themselves are weaponized. The soil, the air, even the light. It's a battlefield in itself. Suddenly, one of the armored figures raised a weapon, its barrel glowing with deadly energy. Cyclops stepped forward instinctively, visor flaring, and fired a concentrated optic blast. The beam struck the figure, but the armor absorbed much of the energy, leaving only a scorch mark. The enemy moved without hesitation, advancing with precision that terrified even Wolverine. Rogue stepped forward, testing her absorption powers. She touched the edge of the alien armor, feeling currents of strange energy. Her body tingled with the sensation of foreign power, as if the suit itself were alive, resisting her. "It's different," she said, eyes wide. "I can feel it. It's not just technology. It's infused with something ancient and dangerous." The X-Men realized the scope of the challenge. These were not mere soldiers. They were part of a vast, interconnected war machine, their minds and weapons intertwined in ways they could barely comprehend. Every encounter was a test, every movement potentially fatal. Then came the first screams from the distance, human voices crying out in fear and pain. The X-Men turned their gaze to a distant settlement, partially destroyed, flames licking the sky. Civilians, if they could be called that in such a world, were fleeing amidst the chaos, pursued by monstrous creatures and armored warriors alike. Cyclops spoke with urgency. "Team, we can't ignore them. There are innocents in danger, and we've got the abilities to help." Wolverine growled. "I say we carve a path through these sons of whatever they are. Yeah, we're gonna have to be careful." Jean Grey extended her senses, creating a psychic barrier to shield the fleeing humans. Rogue and Nightcrawler moved to flank, intercepting the armored enemies before they could reach the civilians. Storm unleashed controlled bursts of wind and lightning, her powers amplified yet warped by the alien energy around them. Cyclops fired precise optic blasts to disable the most dangerous attackers. The first battle was chaotic, brutal, and unlike anything they had ever faced. The enemies were relentless, their coordination perfect. Every strike from the X-Men was countered, every strategy challenged. Yet in the midst of chaos, they began to understand the rules of this universe. They learned that brute strength alone would not suffice. Adaptability, teamwork, and cunning were the only way to survive. Beast moved among the structures, analyzing alien mechanisms, attempting to sabotage war engines before they could unleash devastation. Nightcrawler's teleportation, though hindered, allowed him to rescue civilians and confuse the enemy. Wolverine tore through the front lines, instinct and ferocity allowing him to survive where others might fall. Storm manipulated the elements, creating temporary safe zones amidst the carnage. Jean Grey's psychic influence kept their focus steady, resisting the oppressive, corrupting energies of the warp. When the smoke cleared, the X-Men stood victorious, but shaken. The settlement was partially saved, though not without cost. Their presence had not been unnoticed. Eyes from the horizon, intelligent, calculating, and alien, watched them. The team realized they were no longer merely visitors. They had become participants in a galaxy-wide war where every action could ripple across continents and affect factions they had yet to understand. Cyclops surveyed his team. "We've survived the first wave," he said, his voice steady despite the exhaustion and shock. "But this is just the beginning. We need to understand this place, its rules, its enemies, and we need allies." As they looked to the horizon, massive Gothic spires and alien war engines loomed. Strange ships hovered silently above, their thrumming engines resonating through the ground. Somewhere in the distance, the faint glimmer of Eldar technology, subtle yet unmistakable, hinted at both hope and further danger. The X-Men entered a universe where the scale of war dwarfed anything they had known. Here, survival demanded more than mutant powers. It demanded strategy, courage, and the willingness to embrace forces far beyond their comprehension. And in that moment, as the sun, or whatever passed for sunlight in this twisted sky, struggled to pierce the haze, the team knew one thing with absolute certainty. They were trapped, yes, but they were also capable. They were X-Men, and wherever this galaxy of endless war would take them, they would fight, endure, and adapt. Their journey had only just begun.
The X-Men had barely caught their breath after the chaos of their arrival. The landscape around them was a shattered tapestry of metal and stone, alien in every detail. Towering Gothic spires jutted into the turbulent sky, their sharp silhouettes cutting through the green and purple auroras that danced violently above. The hum of colossal war engines resonated through the ground, shaking the cracked earth beneath their feet. Cyclops led the group cautiously, visor scanning for movement. "We need to understand the rules here," he said. "Every step could be a trap, every shadow a threat. Stay alert." Nightcrawler teleported ahead to scout, but even his teleportation was disturbed by the warp energy saturating the area. He reappeared slightly off target, brushing against the jagged edges of a ruined spire. "The ground, the air, it resists me," he muttered, tail coiling tightly. "It's alive, and it's aware of us." Storm lifted her head to the sky, sensing currents of energy that twisted and pulsed around her. "This isn't just a physical battlefield," she said. "The warp flows through everything here. It touches the ground, the structures, even the air we breathe. It tests us. It watches us." Lightning danced across the horizon, striking distant spires and casting brief, eerie illumination on massive war machines moving in the haze. Beast crouched low, examining the strange metallic debris scattered across the battlefield. "The architecture, the technology, it's integrated," he muttered. "The very structures respond to energy, movement, even thought. Whoever built this,
or whatever built this, designed it to dominate any intruder. From the haze, figures emerged, tall, armored, and imposing. They carried weapons glowing with unnatural light. Their movements were deliberate and precise, coordinated as if part of a larger consciousness. Wolverine unsheathed his claws, growling. "Not random mercs. These things, they're studying us." Rogue stepped forward, cautiously testing her absorption powers on the nearest armored figure. A shock of energy coursed through her, leaving her temporarily stunned. "It's alive. Not alive like a person, but it reacts, feels us." Jean Grey extended her psychic senses, trying to read the minds of the armored patrol. She sensed fragments of intelligence, discipline, coordination, hive-like awareness, but it was alien and mechanical in nature. "They are aware of us, and they are anticipating our every move." The X-Men understood quickly that this encounter was more than a skirmish. It was reconnaissance from a highly advanced war machine. Every movement was calculated, every reaction anticipated. Stealth alone would not suffice. They would need cunning, speed, and teamwork to survive. A low rumble grew louder, and in the distance, massive war engines emerged. Their treads crushed the terrain, firing weapons that left deep craters. The X-Men scattered instinctively, Nightcrawler teleporting to confuse pursuers, storms summoning erratic gusts of wind, Rogue and Wolverine flanking to intercept threats. Cyclops fired precise optic blasts, striking only when necessary. The battle was brief but illuminating. The X-Men realized the intelligence of their opponents, the sheer scale of this universe, and the harsh rules governing survival here. Every engagement was a test, every move a lesson. From the shadows, a faint glimmer of something different caught their attention. Sleek, elegant, and almost ethereal, it radiated intelligence and purpose, unlike the cold coordination of the armored patrols. A subtle promise of allies or guidance lay beyond the chaos, waiting to be discovered. Cyclops gathered the team. "We've survived the first real encounter," he said, "but this is only the beginning. We need to observe, adapt, and be ready. There's much to learn about this universe before we strike, or even survive." And with that, the X-Men pressed onward, shadows among spires and war machines, navigating a galaxy where every movement was scrutinized, and the line between survival and destruction was razor-thin.
As the X-Men pressed forward through the alien battlefield, the scale of the universe around them became even more apparent. Jagged spires rose endlessly, their Gothic silhouettes casting long shadows across the scarred terrain. Smoke and haze from distant battles mingled with the strange auroras in the sky, creating an eerie, chaotic light. Every step they took was measured, every movement analyzed, for danger lurked in every shadow. Cyclops motioned for the team to halt. "Observe first, act second," he instructed. "We're still learning the patterns of these enemies. Patience is our best weapon." Nightcrawler peered from a narrow gap in the ruins, his eyes following the armored patrols moving with mechanical precision. Each step, each gesture, was deliberate. He whispered to the others, "They communicate without words. Their formations shift like a single organism, as if their thoughts are linked." Storm raised her arms, attempting to manipulate the air to shield their approach, yet even her powers were affected by the warp energy saturating the atmosphere. Lightning arced erratically, the winds twisted unnaturally, and bursts of energy from the environment knocked her off balance. "The energy here," she said, voice grim, "interferes with even our abilities. We are not in our world anymore." Beast examined alien machinery scattered across the battlefield. "These structures are not passive. They respond to motion, energy, even psychic presence. This battlefield is alive, or at least it reacts as if it is." Suddenly, a new wave of armored figures advanced. Their weapons glowed, firing in patterns designed to suppress and control.
Rogue and Wolverine moved forward, flanking to intercept the patrols. Rogue reached out, absorbing bursts of energy from their weapons, while Wolverine tore through the nearest soldiers with feral precision. Each strike and parry tested their limits, revealing the brutal efficiency of their foes. Jean Grey extended her psychic senses, feeling the threads of intelligence weaving through the enemy. They were coordinated, not mindless, mechanical, disciplined, and aware. The psychic pressure pressed on her mind, a constant reminder that this universe had dangers beyond physical combat. Cyclops fired precise optic blasts, striking only the most immediate threats, conserving energy and maintaining control. "Keep your focus," he instructed. "Observe their behavior, learn their weaknesses. That is our advantage here." As the engagement unfolded, the X-Men noticed patterns. The armored patrols communicated silently, adjusting their formations based on the team's movements. The war machines responded intelligently, diverting paths, avoiding obstacles, and targeting key points of threat. Every action was calculated, every response deliberate. Amid the chaos, a subtle movement caught Storm's attention. Across the battlefield, a faint shimmering, different from the alien patrols, moved with grace and purpose. Sleek, almost ethereal, it radiated intelligence and guidance. Perhaps it was an ally, perhaps a guide, but it offered the first glimmer of hope in this alien, hostile universe. Beast whispered to Cyclops, "Not all forces here are hostile. That shimmer on the horizon, it's different. I don't know if it's sentient, but it's intelligent and it's aware of us." The X-Men realized the delicate balance they had to maintain. Each engagement with hostile forces provided vital information, but they could not afford a full-scale battle. Every attack was measured, every maneuver calculated. Survival depended on observation, adaptability, and the strategic use of their powers in ways that the universe could not anticipate. Cyclops gathered the team, his voice steady despite the tension. "We've survived our first real confrontation, but that shimmer on the horizon, it may be our first chance to understand this place, maybe even find allies. We move carefully, but we move forward. That is how we survive in a galaxy that wants us dead." Nightcrawler nodded, tail coiling, preparing for his next teleportation. Rogue and Wolverine readied themselves, poised to strike if necessary. Storm's eyes glowed faintly, her control over the elements sharpened. Beast continued to analyze, seeking patterns and weaknesses in the alien technology. Jean Grey's psychic presence expanded, shielding the team and probing the minds of their foes. And as the X-Men advanced, moving with stealth, precision, and purpose, they understood something fundamental. In the grim darkness of the 40K universe, brute strength alone would not save them. Survival required intelligence, adaptability, and the willingness to engage with forces far beyond anything they had ever imagined. Their first encounter had ended, but the war and their journey had only just begun. Every shadow could conceal a threat, every movement could be scrutinized, and every decision could alter the fragile balance between life and death. Yet in the heart of this chaos, the X-Men pressed on, mutants in a galaxy of endless war, determined to survive, adapt, and find a way forward.
The X-Men had survived the chaos of the alien battlefield, but survival alone was not enough. The galaxy around them was vast, dangerous, and alive with conflict. Gothic spires jutted endlessly into the auroral sky. Massive war engines trundled across scarred landscapes, and distant explosions reminded them that this universe had its own rules that could crush the unwary in seconds. Cyclops gathered the team in a narrow canyon formed by collapsed spires. "We've learned a few things," he said, his voice steady, "but we're still outsiders. Survival requires knowledge. Allies, if they exist, may be our only way forward. We need to find them." Nightcrawler peered around the jagged walls, teleporting short distances to survey the terrain. "There is movement ahead," he said, "but it is subtle, deliberate, intelligent, not like the patrols we faced before. Whoever it is, they are aware of us, but not hostile. Yet. Storm lifted her arms, feeling the currents of the warp in the air. I sense something ancient, powerful, and cautious. It does not belong to the Imperium's legions, nor to chaos. This is different. Perhaps it is hope. Beast crouched low, examining the metallic rubble. Not all technology here is oppressive, he whispered. Some structures, some signals, suggest intelligence, guidance. If we can reach them, we may gain knowledge, or even protection. The team moved carefully, shadows among ruined spires and war machines, avoiding patrols while following the faint trace of energy that glimmered on the horizon. The closer they got, the more they noticed the difference. Structures here were sleek, elegant, almost organic in design. The light around them shimmered with a subtle radiance, unlike the harsh glow of Imperial weaponry or the corrupting aura of chaos. Finally, they emerged into a clearing, where a lone figure, or perhaps a small contingent, waited. Sleek and elongated, their forms moved with grace, almost floating over the terrain. Their eyes, or optics, glimmered with intelligence, their presence radiating authority and ancient wisdom. Cyclops instinctively raised a hand in cautious greeting. "We come in peace," he said, carefully choosing his words. The figure regarded them silently, then spoke. The voice was melodic yet distant, carrying an air of caution and knowledge. "You are far from your home, little travelers, and yet you survive. That is no small feat in a galaxy such as this. Who are you, and why do you trespass in this web of war?" Jean Grey stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "We are called X-Men. We come from another world, a world far from here. We did not intend to arrive, but now that we are here, we seek understanding. We mean no harm." The figure studied them, a subtle tilt of the head as if weighing the truth in their words. "Your powers are strange, yet they are coherent, not corrupted by the warp, not enslaved by chaos. You are anomalies." Rogue whispered to Wolverine, "Anomalies? I don't like the sound of that." Wolverine grunted, claws flexing. "Doesn't matter what they call us, just means we gotta be careful." The figure extended a hand, or perhaps a device that functioned as communication, and a holographic map shimmered into existence. It displayed the surrounding terrain, patrol movements, war engines, and distant settlements. This is your reality now. Survive, learn, and decide. We may guide you, but you must prove yourselves capable. Cyclops and Jean Grey exchanged glances. The implications were enormous. Here, in a galaxy of endless war, they had found a being, or beings, willing to communicate, to offer guidance. But trust would not be given lightly. Their powers and judgment would be tested. Storm stepped forward, summoning a small, controlled gust of wind to illustrate their abilities. Lightning crackled softly, restrained but precise. "We are capable," she said. "We can aid you, and we can learn from you." The figure's eyes or optics glimmered. "Very well. We shall observe. But know this, the galaxy you inhabit is cruel. Alliances are fragile, enemies countless, and the line between survival and annihilation is razor thin. We may offer guidance, but not guarantees." Beast analyzed the holographic display. "This map, it shows patrols, installations, warp rifts, even chaos disturbances. The scale of what we're dealing with. It's staggering." Nightcrawler peered at the paths laid out on the map. "And yet, within it, there are corridors, safe passages, opportunities. We must move carefully, follow the guidance offered, and avoid unnecessary conflict." Jean Grey extended her mind, reaching subtly for psychic signatures beyond the immediate area. She felt other presences, distant, wary, intelligent. "We are not alone," she said softly. "There are others out there, some allies, some waiting in the shadows. We must find them before the enemies do."
Cyclops nodded. Then it's decided. We follow the guidance, we learn, and we prepare. This is our first step towards understanding this universe, and perhaps finding a way home. As the X-Men moved under the cautious watch of their new allies, they felt a mix of relief and tension. Relief that not all in this universe sought to destroy them. Tension because every step forward carried risk. One miscalculation could draw the attention of the Imperium, Chaos forces, or worse. The X-Men's journey towards survival, alliances, and understanding had begun. Here in the strange world, every action mattered. Every decision shaped the precarious balance between life, death, and the possibility of returning home. And for the first time since their arrival, a glimmer of hope shimmered on the horizon, a faint but undeniable promise that they were not entirely alone in the grim darkness of the 40K universe.
The X-Men followed the subtle guidance of their new allies, moving carefully through terrain both alien and hostile. Jagged spires and ruined cities stretched as far as the eye could see, but here, among sleek, almost organic structures, they found an unexpected sense of order. The air carried a faint hum, not oppressive like the war machines they had faced before, but alive in a different way, subtle, intelligent, and observant. Cyclops kept the team close, scanning for threats. "We're not in battle yet," he said quietly, "but that doesn't mean we can relax. Every movement is being measured, every step recorded. Stay sharp." Nightcrawler teleported from vantage point to vantage point, studying the landscape. "They have built paths for us," he said. "Safe corridors, but traps may still lie beyond. The galaxy is unpredictable, even with guidance." Storm raised her arms, sensing currents in the warp. "This guidance is precise, calculated, but it is not neutral. Whoever leads us has intention, purpose. We must understand their goals as much as we trust them." Beast crouched near the base of one of the smooth structures, inspecting panels and consoles. "The technology here is centuries, if not millennia, ahead of anything we've seen. The Imperium's machines are brute and massive. Chaos is corrupt and unpredictable. But this is refined, efficient, and controlled. Intelligence flows through it, guiding every movement." As they moved deeper, the X-Men finally made direct contact with a group of Eldar, tall, graceful beings clad in shimmering armor, their weapons elegant yet deadly. Their presence radiated awareness, patience, and a long memory of countless wars. The leader, an Eldar Farseer, extended a hand in cautious greeting. "You are far from your home," the Farseer said, voice melodic and calm. "Yet you survive. That alone is remarkable. You are X-Men, are you not?" Jean Grey stepped forward, calming her rising psychic energy. "Yes," she said. "We come from another world. We did not mean to enter this galaxy, but now that we are here, we wish to understand it. We seek guidance and allies." The Eldar Farseer tilted their head, studying the team. "Your powers are strange, yet coherent. They are not tainted by chaos, nor bound by our kind's rigid disciplines. You are anomalies." Wolverine's claws flexed, ears twitching. "Anomalies, huh? I like the sound of that about as much as a warm day in the desert." Rogue whispered, keeping her voice low. "Doesn't matter. If they can help us survive, we play along." The Eldar Farseer led them to a vantage point overlooking a ruined Imperial settlement. From this height, the X-Men could see patrols moving, human and alien forces struggling against the chaos of war. This universe is cruel. The Imperium is vast, but blind and rigid. Chaos stalks every shadow. Yet there are paths, corridors of survival, if you learn the rules and navigate carefully. Cyclops studied the terrain. "Then we observe first, act second," he said.
We help where we can, learn as much as possible, and stay alive. Beast examined a nearby console, its surface etched with alien runes. "This technology is fascinating," he murmured. "It tracks movements, identifies threats, and predicts potential outcomes. With this, we can understand the battlefield before entering it." Storm looked out across the settlement, her eyes glowing faintly. "And yet, even with knowledge, danger is everywhere. Chaos energy, Imperial suspicion, alien forces. One mistake could cost us everything." Nightcrawler's tail flicked nervously. "Then we move as one. Coordination, precision, observation. That is how we survive in this galaxy, where even the air itself conspires against us." The Eldar Farseer extended a holographic projection of the surrounding systems. Points of interest glowed faintly. Human settlements, Imperial outposts, warp rifts, and enemy encampments. These are the areas of influence. Where you intervene, you may save lives or draw attention. Choose carefully, for every action ripples across the galaxy. Jean Grey reached out psychically, touching the threads of thought running through the network of Eldar perception. There are others, intelligent beings, watching from the shadows, perhaps even more allies or spies. We must be cautious, yet decisive. Cyclops nodded. "Then it's agreed. We learn from them, gain their guidance, and use what we know to survive. And if possible, we protect those who cannot protect themselves." The X-Men spent hours, perhaps days, for time felt distorted in this alien realm, learning from their allies. They observed patrol patterns, warp disturbances, and the strategies of Imperial forces. They practiced coordinated strikes against isolated enemy patrols, learning to combine mutant powers with subtle use of alien technology. Storm learned to manipulate the environment without alerting nearby forces. Wolverine and Nightcrawler became masters of hit-and-run tactics. Rogue absorbed small amounts of alien energy to anticipate enemy strikes. Beast studied the technology, gaining insight into weapons, armor, and war engines. Jean Grey fine-tuned her psychic shielding, protecting both the team and the unsuspecting civilians they began to understand were trapped in this war. As night fell over the alien horizon, a strange calm settled over the team. For the first time since arriving in this universe, they felt a sense of direction. They had allies, guidance, and knowledge. Yet beneath that calm lurked the reminder that survival here was temporary. Every step forward brought new threats, new challenges, and new enemies. The Eldar Farseer finally spoke, their voice calm but weighty with consequence. "You will have guidance. You will learn. But remember, this galaxy does not forgive weakness, nor mercy. Your journey has only begun, and already it is fraught with peril. But those who endure may find a path through the darkness." Cyclops turned to his team, his eyes reflecting both resolve and fatigue. "We've taken the first step. Allies, knowledge, guidance. It's not much, but it's what we need. And if we survive, we'll learn how to use it to our advantage, and maybe even find a way home." Nightcrawler whispered, tail curling, "Home. Far away, in another world. But for now, survival is everything. And we are X-Men. We endure." Storm raised her arms to the sky one last time, drawing energy from the environment, feeling the subtle currents of the warp, and channeling her powers in quiet control. "We will adapt, we will endure, and we will fight when the time comes." And so, under the cautious watch of the Eldar, and guided by their insight, the X-Men stepped forward into the grim darkness of the galaxy, beginning a new chapter of survival, alliances, and discovery. The journey ahead was uncertain, perilous, and unforgiving, but for the first time, they felt a glimmer of hope amidst the endless war.
The X-Men had learned much from their allies. The subtle guidance of the Eldar, the maps of patrols, the whispered warnings of warp anomalies. Yet knowledge alone could not shield them from the brutal reality of the 40K universe. Every shadow concealed a threat, every movement was watched, and every battlefield had consequences measured in lives lost. Cyclops led the team toward a remote human settlement that had been flagged by the Eldar as under imminent threat. From a distance, they could see the settlement's defenses, crude and overworked, struggling to hold against the oncoming assault. Imperial guardsmen, exhausted and outnumbered, fought desperately, their lasguns firing sporadically, trying to keep advancing chaos forces at bay. The air reeked of smoke, scorched metal, and the faint psychic taint of the warp. "Remember," Cyclops instructed, "we are here to help, but subtly. We strike decisively only where it counts. Chaos thrives on fear, confusion, and overreaction. Our advantage is precision, teamwork, and powers they do not expect." Nightcrawler's tail flicked nervously as he scanned the battlefield. "They are organized, but we have the element of surprise. If we move carefully, we can disrupt their assault without drawing overwhelming attention." Storm closed her eyes, feeling the currents of the warp around her. Lightning arced faintly along her fingertips, restrained yet deadly. "The warp is unstable here. Even minor fluctuations could amplify or distort our powers. We must be precise. One misstep, and we could kill ourselves or the people we're trying to save." Beast crouched among the ruins, analyzing patrol movements and enemy formations. "There are choke points we can use, structures, alleyways, and collapsed towers. With coordination, we can strike strategically, hit the enemy where they are weakest, and force them back." Rogue touched one of the Imperial soldiers, absorbing fragments of energy, speed, and coordination. "We've got a window. They're strong but slow to adapt. We can use that." Jean Grey's psychic presence expanded, shielding both the X-Men and a small group of terrified civilians huddled behind barricades. She reached into the warp cautiously, probing the enemy's minds, sensing fear, desperation, and fragmented intelligence. "They are aware of us, but they do not yet understand what we are capable of." Wolverine crouched low, claws flexing. "Then let's show them." With Cyclops' precise command, the X-Men advanced. Nightcrawler teleported ahead, appearing behind a group of Chaos cultists and striking quickly before vanishing again. Wolverine cut through enemy ranks with feral efficiency, leaving stunned soldiers and broken weapons in his wake. Rogue absorbed bursts of incoming energy and redirected them with controlled force. Storm's restrained lightning strikes disarmed, disabled, and scattered the attacking forces without causing collateral damage to the settlement itself. The initial clash was rapid, efficient, and brutal. Yet as the X-Men fought, they realized the scale of the challenge. Massive war machines loomed in the distance, rolling steadily toward the settlement. Their weapons fired indiscriminately, flattening barricades, tearing through structures, and leaving deep craters in the terrain. Survival depended not only on combat skill, but on intelligence, coordination, and the precise use of their powers. Beast called out, pointing toward the war machines. "They have weak points, joints, exposed reactors or sensor arrays. If we coordinate, we can disable them long enough for the civilians to evacuate and the guards to regroup." Cyclops nodded. "Rogue and Nightcrawler, focus on the patrols and cultists. Wolverine and I handle direct threats. Storm, keep your strikes precise. Take out weapons, not walls. Beast and Jean, cover the civilians and analyze the machines. Move fast, strike faster, and retreat if necessary. We do not fight to show strength. We fight to survive and protect." The X-Men's movements were fluid, precise, almost choreographed. Chaos cultists fell before them, while civilians fled under Jean's psychic shielding. Nightcrawler appeared and disappeared in a blur, striking at key points, creating confusion among the enemy.
Rogue absorbed energy from incoming weapons and redirected it with controlled force. Wolverine's feral strikes tore through enemy lines with deadly efficiency. Storm's lightning disabled key weapon arrays on approaching war machines, forcing them to halt temporarily. And yet, for every enemy they neutralized, another seemed to take its place. The X-Men understood that this universe's war was endless, a cycle of destruction and survival far beyond anything they had ever encountered. Each victory came with cost, and every moment of hesitation could be fatal. Amid the chaos, a faint glimmer in the distance signaled the presence of their allies, the Eldar. From high above, their sleek craft and figures observed the battle, offering subtle guidance, warning the X-Men of flanking units, and providing paths of escape should the tide turn against them. It was their first taste of coordinated action with 40K allies, and it reminded them that survival often required partnership and strategy, not brute force alone. Cyclops called out to the team, "This is our moment. Focus, strike, and protect. We may be far from home, but right here, right now, we have the power to change the outcome. Use it wisely." And with that, the X-Men advanced deeper into the fray. Mutants in a galaxy where war was eternal, death was constant, and survival depended on courage, intelligence, and unity. The battle for the settlement had reached a fevered pitch. The X-Men moved like shadows, each member a precise instrument of chaos for their enemies. Chaos cultists fell under Wolverine's feral assault, their rituals interrupted mid-spell. Nightcrawler flickered across the battlefield, striking from unpredictable angles, confusing the enemy's coordination. Rogue absorbed the raw energy of corrupted weapons and redirected it with lethal accuracy, while Storm's controlled lightning disabled armaments and cleared paths for fleeing civilians. Yet the true danger lay in the looming war machines. Massive, armored, and heavily armed, they advanced with deliberate precision, crushing buildings and barricades beneath their treads. Their weapons fired with deadly efficiency, sending debris and fire scattering across the battlefield. Every instinct told the X-Men that a direct engagement would be suicidal, but retreat was not an option. Civilians and Imperial soldiers depended on them. Cyclops directed the team with calm authority. "Beast, you and Jean coordinate defensive shields, protect the civilians, and identify weak points in the war machines. Storm, target those arrays and sensors. Rogue, Nightcrawler, strike at patrols, cut supply lines, and isolate units. Wolverine and I will handle direct engagement with the machines. Timing is everything." The plan unfolded with precise choreography. Storm called down lightning, disabling a massive cannon, forcing the machine to halt. Wolverine and Cyclops combined their attacks, striking exposed joints and weakened armor. Nightcrawler teleported behind enemy lines, sowing chaos among cultist reinforcements. Rogue absorbed blasts from energy weapons, rerouting them to destabilize energy engines. Beast and Jean created psychic shields around civilians, protecting them from stray fire while simultaneously probing the mechanical beasts for vulnerabilities. The tide began to turn. Chaos forces faltered under the combined assault, and the X-Men's precision strikes began to dismantle the enemy's momentum. Yet the cost was clear. Even as they triumphed, the battlefield bore the scars of destruction. Scorched earth, shattered spires, and the anguished cries of the wounded reminded them that victory in this universe was never absolute. In the midst of the chaos, a sudden psychic tremor rolled through the area, an unmistakable mark of the warp, twisting reality itself. Chaos cultists screamed as distorted energy tore through the battlefield. The X-Men held fast, resisting the psychic pressure with Jean's guidance, but the magnitude of the warp's interference made every move perilous. Cyclops shouted above the din, "Focus! We finish this now! No hesitation!" Wolverine lunged at a massive war machine, claws piercing its joints, while Cyclops' optic blast struck the exposed reactor. The machine groaned, sparks flying, and finally collapsed in a shower of twisted metal. Nightcrawler teleported behind another, creating confusion, while Rogue siphoned its energy to weaken it. Storm summoned a focused strike, disabling the final weapons array. Silence fell across the battlefield, broken only by the distant hum of remaining war machines and the groans of survivors. The settlement was battered, but intact. Civilians and Imperial guards looked upon the X-Men with awe, some whispering legends of heroes who moved like shadows, striking with precision and vanishing before the enemy could react. Beast surveyed the scene, noting the efficiency of their strikes and the patterns of the enemy forces. He said quietly, "We've survived, but this universe, it's unlike anything we've faced. Every battle teaches us more about strategy, coordination, and survival, but the cost is never zero." Jean Grey lowered her psychic shields, exhausted but composed. She said, "We've won today, but tomorrow the universe will test us again. The Imperium, Chaos, other factions, they are all watching, waiting. We must remain vigilant." Cyclops gathered the team. This was more than a battle. It was a lesson. We've learned how to fight in this universe, how to protect others, and how to operate without drawing too much attention. We've begun to carve our place here, as shadowed heroes, neither fully part of the Imperium nor fully independent, yet capable of making a difference. Nightcrawler blinked, tail flicking, eyes scanning the horizon. And somewhere out there, allies, enemies, opportunities. The galaxy is vast. We've taken the first step into a war we may never fully understand, but we've survived it. Storm looked toward the auroral sky, feeling the subtle currents of the warp and the energies of the universe itself. She said softly, "We've survived, and that survival is just the beginning. We must endure, adapt, and act whenever and wherever we are needed." As the team regrouped, battered but unbroken, a faint shimmer in the distance caught their attention, the subtle presence of Eldar allies, observing from afar, signaling approval and caution. The X-Men understood the unspoken message. Alliances were fragile, battles were endless, and their journey had only begun. Yet, in the glow of the ruined battlefield, a sense of purpose settled over them. They were far from home, in a universe of eternal war, but they were not helpless. They were X-Men, mutants who endured, adapted, and fought for what was right, even in the grim darkness of the 40K universe. And with that, they prepared to move forward, shadows in a galaxy of war, ready to face whatever challenges the next battle or the next enemy might bring.
The X-Men had survived their first major battle, yet survival was only the beginning. The galaxy stretched vast and incomprehensible around them, filled with the towering structures of the Imperium, sprawling cities of iron and stone, and countless human settlements, each teetering on the edge of ruin. Here, in the heart of a universe ruled by war, every step was a lesson in caution, every glance a test of awareness. Cyclops led the team across a shattered landscape, guiding them along routes marked by Eldar allies. "We need to understand the Imperium," he said, "their technology, their soldiers, their rules of engagement. If we move blindly, we risk drawing attention, or worse." Beast crouched beside him, examining a partially collapsed data terminal. "Even the ruins tell a story," he whispered. "Look at the construction, massive structures, reinforced walls, and energy conduits running for miles. This civilization is brutal, efficient, and built for war.
Survival here requires adaptation, intelligence, and careful observation. Nightcrawler teleported ahead, surveying the cityscape from multiple vantage points. People live here, but they do not thrive. Fear is woven into every brick, every patrol. And yet, there is organization, discipline, orders. They are bound by a system far older and more rigid than anything we've seen on Earth. Storm lifted her gaze, feeling the subtle currents of the warp around the urban sprawl. The psychic presence is faint yet persistent. Even here the warp seeps through. Not every citizen or soldier is aware of it, but those who are fear it. And that fear drives everything, their decisions, their actions, their survival. As they entered the city, the X-Men observed human soldiers patrolling streets lined with statues of emperors, saints, and warriors, their armor gleaming under a pale alien sun. Some soldiers paused, staring at the newcomers with suspicion, while others whispered hurried prayers to gods whose names they did not understand. Jean Grey extended her psychic senses, feeling the fear, discipline, and reverence woven through the population. They are strong in belief, even in despair, but they are fragile in understanding. They do not know what we are, yet they sense that we are not of this world. Cyclops nodded. Then we proceed carefully. We interact only when necessary, and we observe, learn their ways, their priorities, and their vulnerabilities. That knowledge will keep us alive and help us decide how to act when the time comes. Rogue stayed close to civilians moving through the streets, sensing their anxiety and exhaustion. They live like this every day. Constant vigilance, constant fear. And yet, they endure. Maybe we can help them survive, even if we can't save them all. Beast tapped a control panel embedded in a wall, sending a small scan through the city's local systems. The Imperium's technology is vast, interconnected, but rigid. Information flows slowly, hierarchy is strict, and innovation is rare. They rely on orders, tradition, and obedience, rather than flexibility. That rigidity, it can be exploited, but cautiously. As they moved deeper, they encountered an Imperial Adeptus Mechanicus expedition. Red-robed tech priests adorned with bionic augmentations and ritualized tools. Their eyes glowed with cybernetic light, scanning the X-Men with both curiosity and suspicion. One stepped forward, voice mechanical yet measured. "Mutants, beings of energy and anomaly, fascinating and dangerous. Your presence is not sanctioned, yet your survival is noted. Proceed with caution." Nightcrawler whispered to the group, "We are being studied, but not attacked. That may be as close to permission as we'll get." Storm nodded. "We must respect the Imperium's rigid codes, at least outwardly. Any misstep could provoke hostility, even from those who do not wish to fight us." Beast examined a nearby data terminal, discovering schematics for the city's defenses, patrol routes, and warp-sensitive zones. "This knowledge is invaluable," he said quietly. "We can use it to navigate, protect civilians, and avoid unnecessary conflict, while keeping our presence subtle." Jean Grey extended her psychic presence again, sensing the thoughts of the soldiers and tech priests. Fear, awe, curiosity, and the faintest glimmer of hope. We are not fully trusted, but we are not fully enemies either. That gives us a window, a chance to act, observe, and survive. Cyclops looked at the team. "Then we move carefully. We learn, we adapt, and we choose our actions wisely. In this universe, knowledge is as vital as strength, and survival depends on both." The X-Men pressed onward, shadows among the rigid streets, learning the rhythms of the Imperium, understanding the fears and priorities of its people, and observing the machinery of war that surrounded every settlement. Each encounter offered lessons in strategy, patience and restraint. Every choice had consequences, and every observation brought them closer to understanding the precarious balance between life, death, and power in this grim universe. And as night fell over the city, the X-Men gathered in a hidden alcove, reflecting on the scale of the Imperium and the endless war that defined it. They were far from home, mutants in a galaxy of endless conflict, but for the first time they understood a key truth. To survive, they had to blend observation, intelligence, and subtle action. Only then could they protect others, influence outcomes, and begin to carve a place for themselves in a universe where shadows and secrets were often more powerful than guns and bombs.
The city's shadows concealed countless dangers, yet the X-Men moved among them with careful precision. The lessons of their first battle and their initial reconnaissance had prepared them, but navigating the Imperium required more than survival. It demanded understanding, subtlety, and respect for rigid hierarchies that could crush the unwary. Cyclops led the team through narrow alleyways and observation points, watching patrols of guardsmen and Mechanicus troops. "We learned their schedules, routines, and priorities," he said. "We don't interfere unnecessarily. We intervene when it matters." Beast crouched beside a war-damaged control console. "These systems monitor everything," he murmured. "Weapons, power, communication, and even psychic fluctuations. If we understand this network, we can act without drawing attention, or worse, being branded as enemies of the Imperium." Storm raised her arms subtly, sensing currents of the warp. "The psychic presence here is faint but persistent. The Imperium fears it, and chaos covets it. Our powers, though different, are visible in this web of energy. We must be careful in how we act and whom we reveal ourselves to." Nightcrawler flickered through shadows, observing patrols and civilians alike. "Every step must be deliberate. Every action carries consequences. We may protect, but one mistake, and we become targets." Their first mission came unexpectedly. A civilian supply convoy moving through a ruined district had been targeted by a small chaos incursion. Cultists and warp-touched mutants moved to ambush the unarmed vehicles, hoping to pillage supplies and create panic. The X-Men's presence was not known to the Imperium forces in the area, so they had to act decisively, but without revealing their full power. Cyclops directed the team carefully. "Nightcrawler and Rogue take out the immediate threats silently. Wolverine and I will handle any heavy resistance. Storm, provide controlled support. Beast and Jean protect the civilians and maintain oversight." The operation unfolded like clockwork. Nightcrawler struck first, teleporting behind cultists and disabling them before they could react. Rogue absorbed psychic energy from one of the attackers, redirecting it to disarm another group. Wolverine's claws tore through metal and flesh alike, neutralizing threats efficiently. Storm used precise optic blasts to cut weapons from enemies' hands without harming the civilians. Jean Grey maintained psychic shields, dampening the fear and chaos, keeping the civilians calm. When the last cultist fell, silence spread through the district. The convoy moved on, oblivious to the true scale of the threat it had just escaped. The X-Men melted back into the shadows, unseen, yet their actions had saved lives. Beast studied the area, analyzing patrol movements and energy fluctuations. This was more than combat. It was reconnaissance, strategy, and subtle intervention. We acted decisively, but without exposing ourselves. That's how survival works here. Cyclops nodded. "Exactly. We are not here to dominate. We are here to protect, guide, and influence.
Our presence is a tool. Our discretion is our weapon. Every action shapes perception. Every decision echoes across the Imperium's fragile networks. As days passed, the X-Men completed more missions of this nature, rescuing small groups of civilians, sabotaging minor chaos operations, and gathering intelligence on patrols, warp disturbances, and enemy movements. The Imperium began to notice anomalies, sightings of strange, seemingly superhuman figures moving with impossible speed and precision, always aiding those in peril and vanishing before anyone could react. Whispers spread among soldiers and civilians alike. Shadowed heroes, legends who intervened when hope was scarce. Jean Grey observed the growing reputation, her psychic senses catching fragments of conversation and rumor. They do not know who we are, but they remember the actions. That is our advantage. Influence without exposure is far more powerful than brute force in this universe. Storm, watching a patrol pass below, added, "Yet every mission carries risk. The Imperium may never accept us fully. Chaos is always aware, and the warp touches everything. We must remain vigilant and adaptive." Nightcrawler smiled faintly, tail curling in thought. "We are becoming part of the story of this world, not fully known, but ever present. Shadowed heroes, an idea, a symbol, and symbols can endure longer than even armies." By the end of their exploratory missions, the X-Men had learned much about the Imperium. The rigid hierarchy, the fear-driven obedience, the technological marvels, and the ever-present threat of chaos. They understood the importance of patience, subtlety, and observation, and they began to blend their powers with the environment, the technology, and the knowledge they had gained. Cyclops gathered the team atop a ruined spire, overlooking the city. "We know this universe a little better now. We've seen its dangers, its rules, and its people. We've begun to leave a mark without revealing ourselves fully. That mark is hope in the shadows, and it's our first real step toward becoming heroes here." Storm lifted her eyes to the alien sky, currents of wind and warp coiling gently around her fingers. "And while hope is fragile, it is all we can offer, and all some here will ever see." Beast added, "The more we understand, the more we can protect, influence, and survive. Knowledge is our greatest weapon, and observation is our shield. The Imperium may not welcome us, but it cannot ignore us." Nightcrawler blinked, tail curling in thought. "We are far from home, in a galaxy of endless war. Yet in the shadows, we are becoming something more than survivors. We are becoming legends." Jean Grey closed her eyes briefly, feeling the psychic threads of the city, the Imperium, and the universe itself. Legends that act in silence, yet leave lasting impact. Shadowed heroes in a grim universe, and perhaps someday, guides for those who cannot defend themselves. And so the X-Men continued their cautious exploration, weaving through the Imperium streets, observing, learning, and acting where they could. Each mission strengthened their bond, honed their skills, and solidified their reputation. The galaxy of Warhammer 40K was vast, brutal, and unforgiving, but the X-Men had found a way to endure, survive, and begin to shape their own destiny within its endless war.
The X-Men had grown accustomed to the shadows of the Imperium, learning its rhythms and structures. Yet even as they moved with careful precision, a deeper, darker force stirred in the void, the corrupting, ever-watchful presence of chaos. Cyclops observed a distant settlement from a rocky outcrop, scanning for unusual energy readings.
"Something's wrong," he said. "I can feel it, like a ripple through the air, the warp itself stirring." Jean Grey extended her psychic senses, reaching into the currents of the warp. Her eyes widened as the disturbance became clear. "Chaos," she said, voice tight with urgency. "There's something coming, and it's not subtle. There are warp-tainted beings, cultists, and perhaps even daemons converging on the settlement. The Imperium soldiers cannot handle this alone." Nightcrawler teleported to the edge of the outpost, peering through shadows. "We need to move quickly. They are not coming in small numbers. If we wait, the civilians and soldiers will be overrun before we can act." Storm raised her arms to the sky, summoning faint currents of energy to test the warp's interference. "The psychic corruption is strong. It will twist powers, confuse perception, and tempt those unprepared. We must remain disciplined, or it will consume us." Beast analyzed the layout of the settlement and surrounding terrain. "They will attack from multiple points," he warned. "Patrols, supply lines, and civilian zones will all be targeted. We need strategy, coordination, and precision strikes. Brute force alone will not be enough." Cyclops nodded. "Then we split. We hit the attackers where they are weakest, protect the civilians, and coordinate with any Imperium forces that remain. Timing is everything. Chaos thrives on confusion, but we can turn that against them." The team moved swiftly, shadows blending with the ruined structures of the settlement. Nightcrawler teleported silently through alleys, striking cultist squads before they could reach civilians. Rogue absorbed bursts of warp energy from corrupted weapons, redirecting it to disable enemy reinforcements. Wolverine tore through the advancing cultists with feral precision, cutting a path for trapped survivors. Storm's controlled lightning strikes struck both cultists and warp-tainted beasts, her energy precise and deadly. Jean Grey extended her psychic shield over civilians, keeping them calm even as the air warped with chaotic influence. From the high ground, Cyclops coordinated the team's strikes. Nightcrawler flanked the eastern approach. Rogue, protect the civilians along the northern road. Storm, focus on the warp-tainted creatures. Wolverine and I will handle the central assault. Move fast, strike hard, and adapt. Chaos forces moved with terrifying speed and unpredictability. Warp-tainted cultists and daemons emerged, disrupting formations and sending soldiers into panic. Yet the X-Men, coordinated and precise, began to dismantle the threat piece by piece. Nightcrawler's teleportation created confusion. Wolverine's feral attacks cut through the front lines. Rogue redirected destructive energy. Storm disabled the warp-tainted beasts, and Jean Grey maintained psychic shields to contain fear and chaos. Amid the chaos, a massive daemon appeared, a hulking, nightmarish creature, its form writhing with corruption, eyes glowing with warp energy. Its arrival shook the battlefield, causing soldiers to stumble and flee. Cyclops gritted his teeth. "This is it, the test. Stay focused. We fight, but we survive. That is priority one." The X-Men regrouped briefly, analyzing the creature. Beast pointed out structural weaknesses in the demon's form. The joints, the energy nodes, the concentration of warp energy. Target them precisely, and we can take it down without annihilating the surrounding area. Storm's hands crackled with lightning, her eyes glowing faintly. "Then precision it is. We strike, and we strike together." Jean Grey projected her psychic presence outward, sensing the creature's mental link to the warp. "It's connected," she warned. "We must break its focus, disrupt its control over the battlefield, or it will overwhelm everything." Cyclops took a deep breath, surveying his team. "Then we move as one. Strike at its weaknesses, protect the innocent, and survive. Every decision counts. Chaos does not forgive mistakes." And so the X-Men advanced, shadows in the midst of a galaxy-altering storm, ready to confront the horrors of chaos itself. Each step forward was a test of strategy, courage, and skill, lessons in a universe where failure could mean total annihilation.
The battlefield trembled under the weight of chaos. Cultists screamed in ecstasy as warp energy surged, while daemons tore through defenses with terrifying speed. Civilians huddled in ruined buildings, while Imperial soldiers scrambled to form defensive lines, their orders disjointed and ineffective against the unpredictable enemy. Cyclops surveyed the scene from a high vantage point, his optic blasts cutting through darkened alleyways, disarming cultists and halting advancing daemons. "Team," he shouted, "remember the plan. Precision first. Protect civilians. Focus on the warp-touched units. We do not overextend." Nightcrawler flickered into the fray, appearing behind a group of warp-corrupted soldiers and disarming them before they could unleash their attacks. His teleportation strikes created confusion, giving the civilians a narrow window to escape, while Rogue absorbed chaotic energy from a corrupted weapon and redirected it to disrupt the demon's focus. Storm's lightning crackled through the air, restrained yet lethal. Each bolt struck with purpose, disabling warp-infused constructs, collapsing barricades to trap enemies, and clearing safe paths for fleeing civilians. Her eyes glowed as she fought the chaotic influence, careful not to let the warp distort her powers into destructive frenzy. Jean Grey's psychic presence enveloped the civilians and her teammates alike, forming a protective shield against the mental and emotional onslaught of chaos. She probed the enemy's psychic connections, identifying the warp-touched leaders and cultists directing the assault. "We need to sever their control," she warned. "Break the link, and the battlefield will favor us." Beast analyzed the terrain and enemy movements, shouting guidance to the team. "Left flank, collapsed building, use it as cover. Target the nodes on the daemon. Precision, not panic." Wolverine lunged into the chaos, claws slashing with ferro precision, cutting through daemons' corrupted flesh and severing warp conduits. His resilience allowed him to hold the front line, giving his teammates time to act strategically rather than react blindly. The massive daemon, sensing its advantage waning, roared, a sound that shook the very ground. Warp energy flared, distorting reality around it. Civilians screamed as shadows twisted unnaturally, and the soldiers faltered. Cyclops gritted his teeth. "Jean, now, focus the shield on it and the surrounding civilians. Everyone else, hit its weak point simultaneously." In unison, the X-Men executed a coordinated assault. Nightcrawler teleported to distract and flank. Rogue redirected energy blasts to destabilize the daemon. Wolverine ripped through structural weaknesses. Storm's lightning struck exposed energy nodes, and Cyclops fired precise optic beams to disrupt its core. Jean Grey amplified the psychic assault, severing its control over the battlefield. With a final collective effort, the daemon collapsed in a storm of sparks and warp energy, its form dissipating into the air, leaving behind only the echoes of its psychic influence. Chaos forces scattered, disoriented, and leaderless, allowing surviving civilians to regroup under the X-Men's protection. Beast breathed heavily, wiping sweat from his brow. "We did it! But the scale! It's unlike anything we've faced before. Chaos is endless, unpredictable, and relentless." Storm surveyed the ruined settlement. "Survival alone is not enough. Every action we take leaves a mark. The Imperium may never know who saved these people, but they will feel the results." Cyclops gathered the team. "This is what it means to operate in this universe. We act with precision, we protect where we can, and we survive. That is how we make a difference. Not by overpowering, but by guiding outcomes, even in the shadows." Nightcrawler nodded, tail flicking.
And the lessons continue. We've faced chaos directly and lived. That knowledge, that skill, it makes us stronger, more aware, more capable. Jean Grey, exhausted but resolute, added, "The warp is a constant threat, but we have learned to sense it, to act within it, and to shield others. That skill, that control, is essential if we are to endure here." The team regrouped atop a ruined spire, overlooking the city and the aftermath of the attack. Civilians were safe, the immediate chaos threat neutralized, and yet the psychic residue lingered, a constant reminder of the universe's dangers. Cyclops looked at each of his teammates. "We have survived our first major encounter with chaos, and we have protected lives that might otherwise have been lost. We've acted as shadowed heroes, unseen yet impactful. Remember this lesson. Our role here is subtle, precise, and essential." Storm raised her eyes to the alien night sky, currents of energy and warp swirling faintly around her. "And tomorrow, the universe will test us again, but we are ready. We have adapted. We will endure." Beast added quietly, "Chaos may never be fully defeated, but we have learned how to counter it. That knowledge, that skill, is a weapon in its own right." Nightcrawler smiled faintly. "We move forward, mutants in a universe of endless war, but we are not powerless. We have survived, we have acted, and we have begun to leave a mark." Jean Grey's eyes glowed softly, her psychic presence radiating calm determination. "We are shadowed heroes, operating in a galaxy of despair and conflict, and though the threat of chaos is never-ending, we will face it, together, precise and unwavering." With that, the X-Men prepared to move deeper into the Imperium, aware that the universe would continue to challenge them, but also certain that they had the strength, knowledge, and teamwork to endure. The battle was won, but the war had only just begun.
The X-Men had endured the relentless chaos of the Imperium, survived battles with corrupt forces, and adapted to the harsh reality of a universe governed by war, fear, and superstition. Yet even in the heart of their accomplishments, a question lingered in every mind. How could they return home? Cyclops convened the team atop a ruined spire overlooking a distant settlement. "We've survived, we've learned, and we've made an impact. But this isn't our world," he said. "We came here by accident, and we can't stay forever. We need a plan." Jean Grey's psychic presence rippled faintly across the team. "The warp is the key," she said. "It's unstable, unpredictable, but it connects all points of space and time. If we can understand its currents and find a stable pathway, we can navigate back to our dimension." Nightcrawler's tail flicked as he considered the implications. "Warp travel is dangerous," he warned. "We've already felt its pull and distortions. Any attempt without guidance could scatter us, or worse." Storm raised her arms to the sky, summoning the faint currents of psychic energy around the planet. "We may need help," she said. "The Imperium barely understands the warp, but the Eldar, they have knowledge, guidance, and the ability to stabilize a path. We need to seek them out." Beast crouched over a damaged terminal, scanning arcane data streams left behind by the Imperium. "Technology alone won't suffice," he said. "We must combine mutant abilities, psychic insight, and Eldar guidance. It's a complex operation, but feasible if we act carefully." Rogue, eyes narrowed, added, "We've survived battles, psychic attacks, and the corruption of chaos. Returning home, it's a challenge we've faced worse. The question is whether the universe will let us leave unscathed." Cyclops nodded. "Then we prepare. First, we gather information, maps, warp anomalies, psychic signatures. Second, we reach out to the Eldar. They have the knowledge we lack. Third, we combine our powers to stabilize the pathway." The team split into careful reconnaissance groups.
Nightcrawler moved silently among ruins, mapping the safest routes and scouting warp disturbances. Jean and Storm probed psychic currents, analyzing potential paths and detecting dangers invisible to mortal eyes. Beast studied technological readouts, identifying patterns and potential points of convergence. Rogue absorbed latent energies to stabilize localized distortions. Wolverine trained in protecting civilians and scouts, his instincts attuned to both physical and psychic threats. Days passed in meticulous preparation. Every warp anomaly was studied, every potential Eldar contact identified, and every defensive strategy rehearsed. The X-Men understood the stakes. Failure could mean being trapped forever in a universe of endless war. Finally, a glimmer of hope appeared. A distant Eldar presence was detected, an observation craft moving along the edge of the Imperium's territory. Cyclops gathered the team. This is it. They may help us, but we must approach cautiously. The Eldar are precise, ancient, and unpredictable. Any misstep could endanger not just us, but the civilians and allies we've protected. Nightcrawler teleported ahead, leaving a faint shimmer in his wake. "I'll scout the approach," he said. "If there's danger, I'll signal." Jean Grey projected her psychic presence subtly, feeling the Eldar minds, their curiosity and their wariness. They are aware of us, cautious but not hostile. This is our chance, but we must respect their rules, or we risk losing the only pathway home. Storm lowered the winds around them, creating a calm microclimate. We moved together, coordination, discretion, and precision. This is not a battle. We cannot afford mistakes. Cyclops surveyed the horizon. "Prepare yourselves. This is more than a mission. It's our way back home. If we succeed, we return to the world we know. If we fail, we remain shadows in a universe that doesn't forgive errors." As the X-Men advanced toward the Eldar craft, their senses heightened, every shadow and ripple of energy scrutinized. The Eldar observed silently, their presence elegant, alien, and inscrutable. They communicated subtly, their intentions clear yet enigmatic. They would assist, but only if the X-Men proved both capable and disciplined. Jean Grey reached out psychically, guiding the team. "This is our moment," she said. "We've learned the universe, endured its trials, and acted with precision. Now we must combine our skills, knowledge, and trust to navigate home." Cyclops nodded. "Then let's proceed, together, as mutants, as heroes, and as those who will endure until the end." And so with cautious determination, the X-Men moved closer to the Eldar craft, their path toward escape beginning, a journey filled with peril, strategy, and hope. The galaxy remained a storm of war, but for the first time in months, the possibility of home was in reach.
The X-Men approached the Eldar craft with both caution and resolve. Its sleek, organic design shimmered faintly under the alien sun, the hull alive with flowing curves and strange, arcane energy. Unlike the brutal geometry of the Imperium, the Eldar ship seemed almost effortless, graceful, powerful, and ancient. Cyclops signaled the team to halt. "We proceed carefully. These are not human allies. They see and perceive differently. One mistake could cost us their trust, or worse." Jean Grey extended her psychic presence toward the Eldar craft, feeling the intricacies of their minds, sharp, disciplined, and wary. "They are aware of us," she said. "They sense our abilities, our intentions, and our caution. They will not deceive, but they will test us. We must be precise." Storm observed the subtle currents of energy surrounding the craft. "They understand the warp, the flows, the anomalies," she said. "They will guide us, but only if we respect their methods. We cannot force their cooperation. We must earn it." Nightcrawler flickered forward, teleporting just beyond the craft to confirm that the perimeter was safe. "They are watching,"
he whispered back. "Careful, every move is observed, but they are not hostile." An Eldar envoy finally emerged, moving with a fluid elegance, their armor reflecting light in strange prismatic patterns. Words were spoken, but their tone was measured, almost musical, direct yet layered with subtle meaning. Cyclops stepped forward, careful to communicate respect and intent. "We seek passage. Home is our goal. We have no desire for conquest, only to return to our world. We can assist, learn, and adapt to your guidance." The Eldar envoy regarded them silently, then gestured toward the craft's entrance. It was an invitation and a test. Inside, the X-Men found a control array unlike any human technology. Lights pulsed organically, responding to thought and psychic influence rather than buttons or levers. Jean Grey concentrated, guiding the team's understanding. "We need to sync with their system, not just physically, but mentally. They can amplify our powers, stabilize our psychic signatures, and allow us to navigate warp paths safely. But coordination is key. Any error could scatter us across space or tear reality itself." Beast studied the interface, fascinated. "It's partially biological, partially psychic, partially technological, but it's intuitive. If we trust the system, it will trust us back. That synergy is our key." Rogue absorbed faint energy flows, stabilizing them as she moved, her powers complementing the Eldar psychic technology. Wolverine focused on protecting the team from immediate threats, his senses sharp and alert to both warp distortions and physical danger. Storm harmonized her lightning and wind currents, subtly adjusting energies to align with the Eldar psychic technology. Cyclops and Nightcrawler coordinated movements, ensuring precision and timing. Days passed in preparation, with the Eldar teaching the X-Men how to read warp currents, detect anomalies, and stabilize paths to their dimension. At the same time, the Imperium requested their assistance on a sensitive operation. A major threat in a contested sector required both strategic intervention and subtle influence. Perfect cover for the X-Men to further their escape plan. Cyclops addressed the team. "We assist the Imperium, as agreed, but every step will also bring us closer to the pathway home. Strategy, observation, and execution, these are our tools." Jean Grey's psychic guidance allowed them to synchronize with the Eldar craft, mapping multiple potential routes back to their world. Each route was fraught with dangers, warp storms, chaos interference, and the Imperium's own territorial conflicts. But the Eldar assured them that with skill and precision, a path could be stabilized. Nightcrawler grinned faintly. "It's exhilarating and terrifying. One wrong move and we could end up light years from where we intend, or worse." Storm nodded. "And yet, the closer we get, the more control we gain. Every lesson we've learned in this universe is a step toward home." Beast studied the Imperium mission plan. Helping them isn't just a cover, it's also a learning experience. We gain knowledge of their forces, tactics, and technology. That will be invaluable when we attempt the warp traversal. Cyclops looked at the team, determination in his eyes. "We've survived battles, chaos, and unknown technology. Now we combine all that we've learned, mutant abilities, strategy, and Eldar guidance to secure a way home. The universe is vast, dangerous, and unforgiving, but together we can navigate it." As the X-Men prepared for the Imperium mission, each step carefully aligned with the warp pathway plan, they realized a crucial truth. Survival in the 40K universe required more than power. It required trust, discipline, coordination, and the wisdom to act in the shadows. And it was precisely these lessons that would carry them home.
The Imperium's request arrived with both urgency and secrecy. A distant colony, vital for maintaining supply lines and strategic stability, faced an imminent threat, a chaos incursion amplified by warp anomalies.
Civilians, soldiers, and vital infrastructure were at risk. The mission was high stakes and precisely the kind of operation that allowed the X-Men to act without revealing their true identities. Cyclops gathered the team in a ruined observation tower. This is the Imperium's mission, but it's also our opportunity. Every action we take can stabilize our path home, protect innocent lives, and continue our legend as shadowed heroes. Jean Grey extended her psychic senses across the region. "The warp is active here," she warned. "Corruption is strong, and the enemy will have both strategic and psychic advantages. We must anticipate their moves, adapt in real time, and protect the innocents at all costs." Storm raised her eyes to the turbulent skies. Weather, warp, and chaos are all intertwined. We can't control it entirely, but we can influence outcomes with precise strikes and careful manipulation of energies. Beast analyzed satellite images, patrol reports, and intercepted communications. The Imperium forces are underprepared for the scale of this attack. Chaos will exploit every weakness. Timing and strategy are crucial. One misstep could be catastrophic. Rogue crossed her arms. "Then we hit fast, hit smart, and disappear before anyone fully understands what happened. Shadowed heroes, just like we've done before, but on a larger scale." Nightcrawler flickered through the shadows, testing the terrain. "We also need to watch for civilians caught in crossfire. Chaos doesn't discriminate, and the Imperium soldiers are focused on their objectives, not on everyone in the streets." Wolverine sharpened his claws, readying himself. "I'm ready to carve a path if it comes to that. No one gets left behind." Cyclops nodded. "Then let's move. We coordinate with the Imperium, protect the civilians, and neutralize the chaos threat, all while keeping the warp path stable and hidden. Everyone knows their role: timing, precision, and discretion. Let's go." The team approached the colony under the cover of darkness, shadows blending with the ruined architecture. Cultists and warp-touch creatures moved freely through the streets, spreading panic. Imperial guards attempted to organize defenses, but confusion and fear left gaps. Nightcrawler teleported to the first point of contact, silently dispatching small squads of cultists to prevent them from reaching civilians. Rogue absorbed bursts of chaotic energy from corrupted weapons, redirecting it to neutralize threats without harming the surroundings. Wolverine cut through enemy lines with feral precision, creating safe zones for trapped civilians to escape. Storm manipulated wind and lightning to block reinforcements and slow warp-tainted beasts, guiding fleeing civilians away from danger. Jean Grey projected psychic shields to contain fear, protect soldiers, and disrupt enemy coordination. Cyclops directed the team with unwavering focus, using optic blasts with surgical precision to disarm and disable threats without collateral damage. As the team fought, the magnitude of Chaos's plan became clear. Warp energy converged around a central temple, a nexus of corruption amplifying cultist power. If left unchecked, it could destabilize the colony entirely. Cyclops relayed instructions. "We neutralize the temple's influence. Everyone focuses firepower and psychic energy there. Split attention, but converge on the nexus." Jean Grey probed the warp, finding weaknesses in the chaotic energy flow. "Strike simultaneously, disrupt the link, and the cultists will falter." Nightcrawler, Wolverine, and Storm executed precise, coordinated strikes, each targeting the temple's weak points and protective wards. Rogue absorbed energy surges to prevent collateral destruction, while Cyclops' optic blasts severed key structural nodes. Jean Grey's psychic assault severed the connection to the warp, destabilizing the nexus and causing chaos among the enemy ranks. The cultists fell back, disorganized and defeated, while the warp-tainted beasts dissolved as their link to the temple was broken. Civilians and Imperium forces were safe, the colony secured,
and the X-Men melted back into the shadows, leaving only whispers of shadowed heroes behind. Beast studied the energy remnants from the temple. The warp disruption was massive. We've stabilized the area, but it's a reminder that chaos is everywhere, constantly scheming. Our path home must account for this constant interference. Cyclops gathered the team. Mission accomplished. Imperium objectives secured. Civilians safe. And we furthered our understanding of the warp, the chaos nexus, and the routes we need. Every operation here is training, preparation, and progress toward our ultimate goal. Nightcrawler flickered in place. And every victory is a reminder we can survive here, act decisively, and remain shadows. But home is still waiting. Jean Grey nodded. The path is becoming clearer. The Eldar can guide us, but the universe will always test our skill, courage, and restraint. This mission was both a necessity and a rehearsal. Next time we go further, closer to home, and deeper into the Imperium. Storm looked toward the alien sky, and we move forward as mutants, as heroes, and as those who endure. Shadows can be powerful. They guide, protect, and influence even in a universe consumed by war. Cyclops looked at his team with determination. This is the way forward. We continue to protect, we continue to learn, and we continue our plan. Every mission, every shadow, every choice brings us one step closer home.
The X-Men had stabilized the colony and disrupted the initial chaos forces, but the mission was far from over. Reports of warp surges indicated that a larger, coordinated chaos offensive was underway. A massive demon, larger than any previously encountered, now stirred within the depths of the central temple, its psychic influence warping the battlefield and threatening the lives of all within reach. Cyclops surveyed the scene from the ruined spire. "Team," he said, "this is no longer a simple mission. We're facing a direct threat from the warp itself. Coordination and precision will be everything. Everyone knows their role. Protect civilians, disrupt chaos, neutralize the demon, and preserve the temple's energy for analysis." Jean Grey extended her psychic presence across the city, feeling the demon's link to the warp and the way it manipulated the cultists. "It's feeding off fear, pain, and psychic energy," she said. "We need to sever its connection while containing its influence. If it breaks free, the city, and potentially the sector, will be lost." Storm raised her hands, summoning a controlled tempest. Lightning struck with pinpoint precision, disabling warp-energized constructs and opening safe corridors for civilians and soldiers. "We can guide the energy, but we can't control everything. Timing and teamwork will be key." Nightcrawler teleported into the fray, striking at cultist leaders and warping directly behind the demon's psychic anchors. "I'll disrupt the nodes," he shouted. "Cover me while I move, precision only." Wolverine charged the front lines, slicing through warp-tainted flesh and corrupted constructs, holding back the most immediate threats and creating openings for his teammates. Rogue absorbed bursts of chaotic energy and redirected them to sever the demon's link to its minions, carefully avoiding collateral damage. Cyclops coordinated from the high ground, optic blasts striking structural weaknesses and warp conduits feeding the demon. Jean, focus on its psychic center. Rogue, continue to absorb surges. Storm, guide energy away from civilians. Wolverine and Nightcrawler, disrupt its physical anchors. Every second counts. The battle intensified. Warp storms twisted reality, creating unstable terrain and illusions. Cultists moved unpredictably, inspired by the demon's will. Civilians screamed, trapped in the chaos. Yet the X-Men, acting as one cohesive unit, adapted continuously. Their strategy, coordination, and combined mutant powers countered the warp's influence, creating zones of relative safety amidst the turmoil. Jean Grey's psychic assault struck the demon's mind directly, severing its influence over the surrounding cultists. Rage and confusion spread among the enemy ranks. Nightcrawler's teleportation disrupted energy nodes, severing the links binding the demon to the temple. Rogue redirected surges that would have destabilized the city into harmless dispersions.
Storm's controlled lightning neutralized residual warp energy, while Cyclops' precise blasts disabled structural and psychic conduits. Finally, Wolverine leapt toward the demon's core anchor, tearing through corrupted material with feral determination. The demon let out a final psychic scream as its connections shattered, and it dissolved into a whirlwind of warp energy, leaving only echoes in the minds of those who had witnessed it. The city fell silent, broken but safe. Civilians emerged from shelters, dazed yet unharmed. Imperial soldiers regrouped, shaken but inspired by the invisible hands that had guided their survival. Beast exhaled heavily, surveying the aftermath. The scale, it was immense. We've held the line, but this universe never truly rests. Chaos will rise again, and the warp is ever-changing. Cyclops turned to his team. We've completed the mission. The Imperium is safer, the civilians are alive, and the chaos threat here is neutralized, for now. But more importantly, we've learned, we've coordinated, and we've strengthened our path home. Jean Grey added, every battle teaches us something, about the warp, about strategy, and about ourselves. This universe is relentless, but we've shown we can endure, adapt, and triumph, even in the shadows. Storm raised her hands to the alien skies. We have acted as heroes without recognition, guiding, protecting, and influencing outcomes. And we continue to grow stronger together. Nightcrawler flickered beside her. We survive, we learn, and we continue. The Eldar pathways, our mutant abilities, and our teamwork, everything aligns toward our ultimate goal, returning home safely. Cyclops surveyed the team, resolve firm. This mission proves we can navigate this universe, protect its people, and advance our plans. Now we move forward, not just as mutants, but as shadowed heroes preparing for the challenges ahead. Every operation, every careful step brings us closer to our world and ensures we leave a mark here as well. The X-Men vanished into the shadows of the city, their presence known only in whispers of survival and courage. The grand mission was complete, but the journey, through the warp, toward home, and through the endless wars of the 40K universe, had only just begun.
After months of navigating the perilous Imperium, the X-Men had adapted to the horrors of the 40K universe. They had battled chaos, protected civilians, collaborated with the Eldar, and conducted sensitive missions for the Imperium. Yet, a shadow loomed larger than any before. A massive, coordinated chaos assault targeting multiple human settlements, warp nexuses, and strategic assets. Cyclops convened the team atop a ruined command tower overlooking the approaching threat. "This isn't just a battle, it's a war," he said. "Chaos is mobilizing on a scale we've never seen. Every choice we make, every action we take, will have consequences across the sector." Jean Grey closed her eyes, reaching into the warp. Her psychic senses shivered with the magnitude of the threat. It's not just a single daemon or cultist army. This is an entire coordinated network, feeding on warp energy, human fear, and aggression. If we fail, it's not just settlements lost, it's entire sectors destabilized. Storm raised her arms, feeling the turbulence in the air. The elements themselves are twisted by the warp. Lightning, wind, and storms act unpredictably. We must strike with precision. Every attack, every movement must count. Beast analyzed reports from multiple settlements. The chaos forces are converging simultaneously. They're not just attacking, they're trying to overwhelm the Imperium's command structure and create multiple warp breaches. We'll need coordination, timing, and careful resource management. Nightcrawler flickered forward, tail flicking as he surveyed enemy formations. We can't fight everything head-on. We must strike critical points, disrupt their command, and protect civilians. Shadowed attacks are the only way forward. Rogue nodded. We've trained for high-risk missions before, but this is on a different scale. Everyone needs to trust each other completely.
Wolverine flexed his claws. "I don't care how big it is. I'll cut a path if it comes to that. No civilians left behind. No mistakes." Cyclops surveyed the battlefield, noting weak points in the enemy approach. "Nightcrawler and Rogue, you handle infiltrations and critical strikes. Wolverine and I take the central battlefield and protect civilians. Storm and Jean use controlled elemental and psychic attacks to disrupt warp nexuses and enemy formations. Beast, coordinate support and analysis, guide us in real time." As the team advanced, warp-tainted storms twisted the terrain, sending distortions that disoriented Imperial forces. Cultists and daemons appeared in unpredictable patterns, attacking civilians and soldiers alike. Nightcrawler teleported behind a warp-infused squad, disarming them silently and creating confusion in enemy ranks. Rogue absorbed chaotic energy surges and redirected them to weaken key enemy anchors without collateral damage. Wolverine tore through the front line, cutting paths and rescuing trapped civilians. Storm manipulated weather and lightning, her strikes coordinated to disrupt enemy formations while guiding fleeing survivors. Jean Grey projected psychic shields, stabilizing panicked civilians and containing enemy psychic influence. Cyclops' optic blasts struck with pinpoint accuracy, neutralizing key enemy targets while minimizing damage to the city. Suddenly, a massive Chaos Daemon emerged from a warp rift, a towering monstrosity bristling with energy, with eyes radiating raw psychic power. Its roar shook the city, spreading terror. Cyclops' jaw tightened. This is it, the center of their attack. Everyone, converge and focus on its weak points while containing the surrounding chaos. Beast analyzed the creature, pointing out structural and psychic vulnerabilities. Strike the nodes, disrupt its psychic link, and destabilize the warp energy feeding it. Precision is everything. Jean Grey projected a psychic probe into the daemon's mind, sensing its connection to the warp and the coordinating cultists. If we sever these links simultaneously, we can collapse the entire offensive, but timing must be perfect. Nightcrawler prepared to teleport directly into the daemon's flank, Wolverine ready to assault its physical anchors, Rogue absorbing and redirecting destructive energy, Storm channeling controlled lightning to neutralize surrounding warp energy, and Cyclops lining up precise optic strikes. The X-Men readied themselves. The battle ahead would test every skill, every power, every lesson learned in this universe. They were shadowed heroes now, operating in a galaxy consumed by war. But the stakes had never been higher. Survival, victory, and the lives of thousands rested on their shoulders.
The massive Chaos Demon loomed over the city, its psychic influence twisting reality and fueling the cultists' frenzy. Civilians screamed, fleeing into narrow alleys, while Imperial soldiers scrambled to hold ground, their morale shaken by the sheer scale of the threat. Cyclops stood atop a collapsed tower, coordinating his team. "Everyone, stick to the plan. Precision strikes, protect civilians, and sever the demon's link to the warp. We do this together, no mistakes." Jean Grey extended her psychic presence into the demon's mind, feeling its immense power and the way it twisted cultists into puppets of chaos. "I can contain it, but only if the others disrupt its anchors. Focus, timing, coordination. Now, everyone!" Nightcrawler flickered behind enemy lines, teleporting between warp nodes and cultist leaders. Each strike dismantled control points, disorienting the demon and severing psychic links. Rogue absorbed chaotic energy surges and redirected them back at the demon, weakening its grip on reality. Wolverine tore through physical anchors of the demon, his claws striking with unyielding ferocity. Every slash disrupted the creature's connection to the warp and sent shockwaves through the battlefield. Storm raised her arms to the sky, sending controlled lightning through energy nodes, neutralizing the demon's environmental advantages and clearing paths for fleeing civilians. Cyclops fired precise optic blasts at key targets identified by Jean and Beast. Each beam severed critical nodes, destabilizing the demon's form and fracturing its psychic control over the cultists. The battle reached its climax as the demon, sensing its defeat, unleashed a psychic scream that rippled across the city, warping buildings, summoning minor demons, and instilling terror. Civilians and soldiers faltered, but the X-Men held their ground. Jean Grey intensified her psychic assault, forming a mental cage around the demon. "We break its links now," she shouted. Nightcrawler teleported to sever the final nodes. Rogue absorbed the last surges of warp energy. Wolverine tore the demon's anchor to pieces. Storm's lightning struck with surgical precision, and Cyclops' optic beams cut the final conduits. The demon let out a deafening roar before collapsing into a whirlwind of dissipating warp energy. The remaining cultists fled, disorganized and leaderless. Civilians emerged from hiding, dazed but unharmed, while Imperial soldiers regrouped, awed by the unseen force that had saved them. Beast exhaled heavily, scanning the area. "The battle is won, but the psychic residue, it's unlike anything we've experienced. The warp never truly rests." Cyclops turned to the team. "We've stopped a galaxy-level threat, protected lives, and demonstrated that we can act as shadowed heroes in this universe. But more importantly, we've learned how to combine our powers with 40K technology, strategy, and allies. That knowledge brings us closer to home." Nightcrawler flickered beside Cyclops, tail flicking. "We survived, adapted, and overcame. Every battle, every challenge has prepared us for the ultimate step, returning home." Storm looked to the storm-racked sky. "We act in the shadows, guide outcomes, and protect innocence. That is our role here, and it has made us stronger, wiser, and more capable." Jean Grey's eyes glowed softly, her psychic presence radiating calm determination. "The warp, chaos, and the Imperium have tested us, but we have endured. We are ready for whatever comes next, our path home, our final confrontations, and the legacy we leave in this universe." Cyclops surveyed the team, his jaw firm with determination. "This is our victory today, but the war continues. We move forward, together, as mutants, as heroes, and as the shadowed force that can shape outcomes in a universe of endless war." The X-Men vanished into the shadows, leaving only whispers of courage, survival, and power behind them. The final confrontation had been won, yet the lessons, scars, and experience would carry them into the next chapter of their journey. A journey that would soon lead them toward the grand ending and the hope of returning home.
The battles had been long, relentless, and harrowing. Chaos had been confronted, the Imperium aided, and civilians saved countless times. Yet as the dust settled on the scarred landscapes of war-torn worlds, Cyclops gathered the team in a ruined observation spire overlooking the alien horizon. "We've done everything we came to do and more," he said. We've become shadowed heroes in a universe that doesn't forgive mistakes. The Imperium sees results, the Eldar see potential. And yet, this isn't our home. It's time to make a choice. Jean Grey's psychic presence radiated calm determination. "We remain as shadowed protectors if needed," she said. "The Imperium requires guidance. Humans require protection. And yet, we have a way home. The Eldar have opened the path. All we need is to prepare and coordinate." Storm's eyes swept over the fractured cityscape. "We've acted as guardians without recognition. Every mission strengthened us, taught us the rules of this universe, and prepared us for what comes next. But home is calling." Beast examined the tactical maps, analyzing both Imperium and warp anomalies. "We can continue missions, assist as needed, and still chart a safe return. The information we've gained, the techniques we've developed, it all aligns with the Eldar guidance. We're ready." Nightcrawler flickered forward. "We have survived chaos, warped realities, and alien war machines. Nothing in this universe will stop us if we act together. Our path is clear, but we must act carefully." Rogue nodded. "We'll continue to operate in the shadows, aid the Imperium, and protect innocents. And when the time is right, we return home, without leaving any loose ends behind." Wolverine flexed his claws, a faint smirk crossing his face. "I've fought worse than this. Shadowed missions, massive battles. We'll do our part here, then get back home. Simple as that." Cyclops looked at the team, determination blazing. "The plan is unified. We act as shadowed heroes, assisting the Imperium where needed. But secretly, with the Eldar's help, we stabilize a warp path home. Sequential, precise, and coordinated. No split endings, no uncertainties. Every move matters." Jean Grey extended her psychic senses to the Eldar craft waiting nearby. The alien presence pulsed with approval and guidance, attuned to their coordinated efforts and careful timing. "They're ready to assist," she said. "The path is open, but we must act as one." The X-Men moved through the city and war-torn landscapes, completing smaller missions in the shadows, each step reinforcing their legend. Civilians whispered of ghostly protectors. Imperial officers noted inexplicable victories. Chaos forces retreated or were neutralized before reaching critical points. Every action balanced duty with the ultimate goal, home. As night fell over the alien skies, Cyclops gathered the team one last time. "This is the moment to consolidate our efforts. Every mission completed, every chaos threat mitigated, every life saved. It all leads to the final step. We move forward together, acting as heroes unseen, and prepare to return to our world." Jean Grey's psychic glow enveloped the team. "The Eldar pathway is stable, ready to transport us when we choose. But our presence here matters. We leave behind a mark of shadowed heroism and strategic influence in a universe that rarely knows gratitude." Storm raised her arms, channeling subtle currents of wind and energy to harmonize with the warp. "We remain vigilant, we remain protective, and we remain as shadows until the final moment." Cyclops nodded. "And then, home, together. Nothing is left unresolved. Our story in this universe continues, but our journey toward Earth and our own time remains intact." With a final glance at the alien horizon, the X-Men prepared for their next series of shadowed missions while keeping the warp pathway open. Their dual purpose, protecting the Imperium and returning home, now merged into a single sequential narrative of strategy, courage, and determination. The galaxy of Warhammer 40K remained a place of war and chaos, but within it, the X-Men had carved a legend. Shadowed heroes, guardians, and strategists, they endured, adapted, and prepared for the ultimate return. And above all, they were ready for whatever came next, together.
The war-torn landscape stretched before them, a testament to battles fought and victories earned. The X-Men stood together atop a reinforced observation platform, overlooking an Imperium settlement that had been saved countless times through their shadowed heroism. The alien sun dipped below jagged horizons, casting long, dramatic shadows across the ruins and reconstructed buildings. Cyclops surveyed the city below. "We've done everything we came to do," he said, voice firm but tinged with reflection. "Every mission, every battle, every life saved, it all led to this moment." Jean Grey stepped forward, her psychic aura glowing softly. "The Eldar have stabilized the warp pathway. When we leave, it will safely carry us home. But our mark here will remain, an echo of hope, strategy, and courage in a universe consumed by war." Storm raised her arms, letting the alien winds play across her features. "We leave as shadows, unseen heroes whose actions shaped destinies and prevented catastrophes. And yet, we return to our world, changed, wiser, and stronger." Nightcrawler flickered silently, stepping into the center of the platform. "The pathway is open. The Eldar will guide us, but this farewell is more than just a departure. It is a recognition of everything we survived, everything we accomplished." Rogue absorbed the faint energies of the surrounding warp, grounding herself. "We've learned to navigate this universe, to fight alongside humans, aliens, and Eldar, and to resist chaos. Those lessons stay with us, even when we leave." Wolverine adjusted his stance, scanning the horizon one last time. "No war lasts forever, but some marks remain. The people here may never see us, but they'll remember the results. That's enough." Beast examined the warp portal humming before them, an iridescent vortex of energy stabilized by Eldar technology. "It's precise, calculated, and ready. We step through together, and the journey home begins. But our experiences here, the battles, the allies, the choices, remain imprinted on this universe." An Eldar envoy approached, elegant and serene, gestures both formal and gentle. They extended a hand in farewell, acknowledging the X-Men's courage, discipline, and adaptation to the galaxy of endless war. Jean Grey and Cyclops nodded in respect, understanding the gravity of the gesture. Cyclops looked at his team. "We go home, but we leave behind a legacy. Shadowed heroes who influenced history without recognition. Our impact remains, and someday, perhaps our paths may cross again with allies we've made in this universe." The Eldar portal shimmered, casting strange prismatic light across the X-Men. They felt the tug of their own dimension, their memories of Earth, and the lives they'd left behind. Storm glanced at her teammates. "Together," she said softly. "Together," they echoed. In a final moment of silent reflection, each X-Man took in the alien sky, the ruined cities, the Imperium forces below, and the lingering whispers of chaos held at bay. Then, with a collective step forward, they entered the warp portal. The iridescent light engulfed them, surrounding their forms with swirling energy. Their shapes flickered between realities as the portal transported them across dimensions. The 40K universe watched silently. Shadows remained where the X-Men had acted, whispers of courage, strategy,
and unseen heroism that would ripple across time and space. And on the other side, in their own world, the X-Men reappeared, altered, stronger, and united by experiences that no other team could truly understand. Their journey had ended, but the lessons, scars, and memories of Warhammer 40K would stay with them forever. The portal closed behind them, leaving only the faintest shimmer in the air, a reminder that even in a universe consumed by war and chaos, heroes could exist in the shadows, silent, unseen, but indelible.